Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the Imagination Factory and our first live episode, which is pretty exciting. I'm Sarah,
I'm Keith.
and we're so happy that you're joining us. And if you're joining us live, thank you for being here. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching and make sure you're subscribed. And so that you catch up on all the episodes because we've done 4 already. And this one sort of builds on what we've already done.
Yeah. And so we're at a really good place, I think, where the first 4 episodes were about the world building. And
Mhm.
today we're actually going to go into the story structure where we're going to lay out thumbnails. So I think it's a really good time to be jumping onto the podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you haven't seen anything up until now, you'll definitely want to catch up. But just to give you some high level, we're creating a comic book with the whole idea being that it's in the horror thriller genre about a door, this mysterious door. And it's a contained story that we've been working through, and we're going to take it to the next stages today.
Yeah. And what's really cool about this, if you go back to the first episode, we started off with nothing, right? So this is basically you watching us create a comic live in front of your eyes. And what's really exciting about it is we don't know where this is going to go as well.
Yeah, every week is us kind of fresh ideas to each other. So I worked on stuff. Keith's worked on stuff. He's going to share a little bit about what he's done between episodes just to kind of catch you up on it. And all of these things that we're doing not live are recorded live and are available to members. So we also have the second half of all the episodes and all kinds of additional content in our members area. So if you're interested in seeing beyond the 30-minute episodes we're sharing, make sure to become a member and you'll get tons of additional content and a little bit of context that you might not get otherwise.
Yeah. And you can find us on Instagram as well as TikTok.
Exactly.
So we were talking about something to, we always like to introduce ourselves, but introduce something new that neither one of us necessarily knows about each other.
Hmm.
So for this one, we're thinking of what was the first time that for Sarah, she created like some writing a story that she really thought was, oh my God, this is it, or this is great. I'm
Hmm.
like, I can't believe I've created this.
So for me, it actually was when I was in the 6th grade, which sounds really funny. I wrote a poem just because my teacher was like, do something, you're sitting there bored. So I wrote this poem and she read it and she's like, this poem's fantastic. She submitted it to the principal, who submitted it to the school board, and it ended up being handed out at the Ontario Teachers Conference. To every single teacher that was there. It was part of what they were given. It was read aloud before they started the conference. And that was a really cool moment that kind of solidified, because I'd always loved to write, that maybe I was actually good at this. So that's probably the first time that I really felt that I could maybe make a career as a writer.
That's really cool. So for me as an artist, as as I'd mentioned in a previous episode, I had been published by advertising agency that my parents owned, but that kind of felt like nepotism. Like it wasn't really. I know it was kind of a cool story, but the first time I really felt like I created something that was bigger than myself was when I was in university, and I was doing graphic design on the side, and I went to my comic book shop, and the manager told me that there was somebody looking for an artist to do sketches for a club that they were going to be opening. It was a
Mm.
sci-fi themed club, and would I be interested in potentially pitching him? And so I ended up getting the job. It was Johnny's Johnny Neutron Sci-Fi themed club or something like that. And I created this character of Johnny Neutron and a villain and this whole like world that they would exist in. And then I also did like a illustrated mock-up of what the club could look like.
That's so cool.
And he hired me to paint the walls in the club too.
Oh,
So I had
wow.
to figure out how to like take this little, 9 by 12 illustration and blow it up to like 10 by 20 or something like really big size. And that was amazing. Like that was just a great feeling to be like, this is something that people are going to see on a wall as they're in this club.
How cool.
And whether they know who did it, they'll my art will be present for this. So that was a really cool experience.
That is a really cool story. I love it. All right, so let's jump in. So before we get into what we're going to cover this episode, let's go back a little bit. And Keith is going to share with you some things that he did between episodes because he's been working on some additional world building character things since we last met. So he's going to share those with us now.
Yeah. So we were working on characters in action, and we did 1 to 2, which I showed last time. I was only able to get to 3, which was uh, initially when we were starting off, we were thinking this is going to be a 4-page story. It's now a 6-page story. So number 3 represents what the feeling, the energy would have been on the 3rd page, whereas pages 1 and 2 would have reflected the feelings and the energy you would have gotten from those first 2 pages. So 3, our character is getting more energized and anxious. They want to figure out what this door is, and they're
Mhm.
calling people and they're researching and just racking their brain, and it's making them kind of paranoid. So I just wanted to really capture that feeling. And I think the energy expressed is through the big movements. The hair is starting to flow out
Yeah,
more.
I
The
love the hair.
expressions are getting bigger.
And
What's
if
that?
you I love the hair, and actually, if you're not one of our members, you probably don't know that we went from a 4-page to a 6-page, because that was something that
Hmm.
happened in the second half of the episode, is we realized that what we were building was actually more than a 4-page comic, and we decided to add to it, so this is great to kinda let you all know that this has changed a little bit since last episode.
Yeah. And I think we can go into a little bit more detail uh,
Mhm.
in a subsequent episode, I think, as to why we decided to expand, or maybe in this episode, but more in depth, I think, in a later episode for sure.
Yeah.
So let me show the other thing I worked on. So this is kind of a funny story, which is I wanted to figure out the door, the feeling the door. And this also came out from the membership video that we were doing last time, is actually talking about the character of the door. And so I decided I wanted to play around with different possible configurations of what the door
Mhm.
can look like. And I was recording it, not realizing I went live.
Sneak peek.
Because we're going live this week, I guess there was a setting that was set for just record live. So the whole time I'm drawing, thankfully there was no sound and no video of me. So it was just what I was doing uh, digitally. But one of my friends, Paul, commented, and I'm like, "How does he know what I'm doing right now? That's really weird." And that's when I went to the YouTube channel and go, "Oh, it recorded the door." Well, that's kind of cool because it's almost like a little teaser or commercial for what this
Mhm.
whole story is going to be about. And I think this illustration captures some of that darkness door is going to be presenting. Hopefully that comes across, that it almost becomes this character unto itself. I'll stop sharing so that you can start talking about the script.
Yes. So last time I presented a script and we went through it and we used it for the additional world building. And we went back and forth and we decided to really sort of add some more elements to it and actually expanded it into 6 pages from 4. So I'm going to share with you where we are at now with the script. And we can look at this here. Okay. So this is our updated script based on what we did last time. So our first page is still the arrival and disruption. So in our first panel, this is when we sort of set the scene. Boxes in the mostly bare apartment. It's a daytime with a little bit of light from the window, a little bit of furniture, the TV, the scattered books, a bookshelf. The extra door is present, but it's not spotlit. It's just there. It's not made a thing yet. As we go on, we see Sam mid-task carrying a box and they kind of catch the door. I'm like, like that. What is that? Next, in panel 3, we see Sam cross over to it with their hand on the knob and it doesn't budge. Walked. Now we have Sam at the counter near the entry. using the landline corded phone. This was actually something important that came up last episode as well, as we wanted this set in a pre-technology era to really help with some of the tension. So they're on a landline phone and the door is sitting in the background. So Sam's trying to sound normal. Hi, quick question. There's a locked door in my unit and I don't have a key. And the landlord's reply of, what door? So we start to set the tension. Sam freezes, and we just see a bit of panic, the normalcy drain from their face, and the door behind them is still there. No, there's, never mind. And then in the last panel on this page, we have Sam turn back to the boxes, and in the foreground, we frame the door slightly more present than before. So the door is starting to become a little bit more of a character at this point. So that's our first page. Now we're going to flip to the second page, and this is our avoidance page. So Sam drags a beanbag or a floor cushion to sit away from the door. Better. Books are stacked under the TV to raise it. We kind of feel like Sam's apartment is a little bit barren. There's not a lot going on in it. Sam sits on the floor with the remote. The door is faintly reflected in the TV's dark screen. Okay. Sam tries not to look, and their eyes drift anyway. Don't. Sam stares at the TV. The door's reflection is clearer now, and Sam's jaw tightens. Sam abruptly shifts position, and we see that as they're moving around. Sam shoves the bookshelf to partially block the door, and the books are still neat for now, and there's a small plant that's healthy. Okay, and final panel, it's night, and the TV glow in the street light, the blocked door silhouette still reads. And we just hear Sam say, why is it still there? Okay, now we go on to page 3. So Sam's built a nest on the floor facing the door. There's papers, there's books, there's scribbles, there's notes, and all photoshops, like all kinds of things there. And we see a close-up of what's on there. Doors, previous tenant, building plans, no key, why me? So Sam's starting to spiral and research. Again, this is all analog research because of the fact that we're setting this in a time where you couldn't just go on to a group chat and ask if anybody else has experienced this. Panel number 3 is our second phone call. I need to know what's behind it. Off panel, the landlord responds dismissive, and Sam's going to snap. I told you there's no, then why can I see it? Click, hanging up the phone. Panel 5, a time-lapse composition with like kind of ghost overlays, day, night, day, Sam upright, slumped, upright, the door is constant. So just this feeling that won't go away. Final panel on this page is Sam presses an ear to the door, listening really hard. I know you're in there. Okay, now page 4. This is one of our new pages. So Sam's at the door with the screwdriver and looks kind of controlled at first, but scratch marks begin. Just open. Close up of the metal scraping, paint, wood, tiny curl, like they're really trying to get into there. Tries the knob again. Nothing. Starting to get angry. Strikes the door. Not like axe murderer frantic, but just like thud, thud, trying to get in. The door surface is now visibly scarred or a little bit scuffed. Sam's hair is messier, the eyes are tired, the plant is beginning to droop. We see the progression, and then in the final panel on this page, Sam slumps against the wall. The door is huge in comparison. Let me see, please. Now to page 5. The door is going to open without being touched. So Sam's on the floor, spent. Tools are nearby. The nest is chaos. The plant is dead. The door dominates. So a huge change from where we were. There's a bit of stillness, then a small sound from the door. Creak. Sam's eyes open. Slow head turn, no hope, just reflex. The door opens a crack by itself. Inside is just black. Negative space, no depth, no detail. Sam rises slowly and approaches. It's like they can't stop themselves at this point, and we just hear, fine. Sam is in front of the crack. The blackness swallows the panel edges. Sam steps through, and we see them disappear, but we don't know what happened. That's the end of that one. Next page, final page, we have a full black panel with silence. And then the next one is light. Normalcy returns. Same apartment, daytime, the mess is gone. The room looks reset. The door is closed. New tenant enters carrying boxes. Bright, excited energy. It's perfect. As they move deeper into the room, they glance and notice the extra door. So their expression shifts, not terror, just confusion. They step toward it, mirroring Sam's page one motion, and end with the door just present and patient. Nothing else happens.
Very cool. That's
Yeah.
excellent. So, let me share my screen here. So, some of the things that you mentioned, the word nest. Just I loved how you presented that as a really interesting visual, and
Mhm.
that you can see I wrote that down.
Yeah.
Um, So, what I'm going to do is explain a little bit about what you're looking at here before I actually start doing any kind of thumbnails. And then while I start doing thumbnails, I believe we have some people waiting to say something to us. So let us get to this, and then we'll if you have any questions or just any comments, we'll answer them. So what I have here is essentially a thumbnail layout, and they're really small purposely because I want to be able to get really quick, energized impressions of what I was reading. It's not meant to look pretty. It's meant for me as like a guide or a map. I'm going to put like the amount of panels on each of the uh, thumbnails so that I can get an idea of like how it's going to pace out. When I mean by pace, I mean like the time it's going to take for the character to go through that particular page. And the other reason I have this at such a small size is that I can see all those pages together to see how they flow. So I look at them both individually as well as a unit. And it's important when you're telling a story that you have, as I had said before, a pacing to the story so that if you need something to be really fast, you can figure out whether you have one or two panels on that page and a little dialogue, or if you want somebody to slow down in their reading, you may have a lot of panels or a lot of dialogue. And those things help guide you to actually control the way the reader is taking in the story. Right.
Mhm.
So you're basically you're taking them. I always think of like a roller coaster, and you're building up that suspense as the roller coaster slowly goes up. And then right at the top there, when it's about to get really, really scary, you know something's going to happen. It goes down, right? And so then all of a sudden you're in for this really fun ride. And that's kind of like what I think about when I'm thinking about how I'm flowing the pages. And you can see here that I numbered them. And the way that a comic book or any book really generally starts is when you first open up the book, you're going to have interior cover and then page one on the opposite side. And that, so if I were to flip it on this side, the interior cover, page one, um, I think that, or I maybe reverse that, but either way, you're only seeing that one page of whatever the story is going to be. And then the next page, when you open it up, is going to be, it's actually two pages. You're going to have two and three. And then the next set of pages, four and five. And I think we've mentioned this before. If when you turn a page, you want to leave like kind of like some kind of cliffhanger on that
Mhm.
panel prior to that page that you're going to turn to, and it could be very very minor thing, but you're doing it in a way so that the person reading it wants to turn the page, right? So now you have, if there's some kind of big reveal on page two, right? You're going to plant some kind of seed on page one, that last panel, and as they open, they're going to be like, "Whoa!" Right? And then three, they're going to see it right away. So it's not going to be a big reveal. You wouldn't put a big reveal necessarily on that other side
Mhm.
because they're going to be able to see it right away. It's going to be deflated a bit by whatever's happening on page two. Right. So, and then, again, you go back to page three, you're going to have last panel, another, little cliffhanger, and then that reveal on page four. So that's one of those things you want to keep in mind. And there's a reason why I number it that way. So I could also see how it's going to print out, especially if you're going to have, let's say, a double page spread. You want to make sure that they coincide with the proper page spread that you're going to be working on, right? You don't want to have a spread that's between three and four because that's not going to work, right? So you want to lay, this is again, as I said, it's like a map of how you're going to be um, seeing the story in a really small, quick way. And all of this really shouldn't take a long time. So I've got about 10 or 11 minutes I think I'm going to try to do at least the first three thumbnails. And as you're going to see, they're going to be quick. You may not exactly understand what I'm drawing, but I'm going to um, lay out the amount of panels that are going to be on each page, and therefore you'll get, if you remember what they were, I can also say them out loud, so that you don't, you can follow along with what I'm doing.
As Keith mentioned, one of the things that we really talked about was those page turns, right? Like we just when we decided to add the additional pages, part of it was to give those opportunities for those additional kind of page turns to be able to have that bit of suspense. So right now, he's laying out the first page, which is setting up all of that action. And like you noticed, I gave panel direction, but I wasn't specific with anything else, right? Like, as you can see, we have a big panel across the top and then two smaller ones. So again, it's up to Keith now to interpret what he thinks works best. And if he thinks I put too many panels or not enough on a page, that's also something that's always open for discussion. So I gave a suggestion, but we're not married to it. Like we've talked about many times, we want to leave enough of a gap and enough of an opportunity for both of us to have a say in the production, that if, as he's starting to do these thumbnails, if something's not sitting right from a panel point of view, we can relook at that and either close the action to be less panels or add additional or change something up. So that's kind of what the next stage is going to be as he starts to lay it out.
Yeah, and a couple of things that I'm thinking about while I'm doing this, which is, where is the dialogue going to go? Right. I
Mhm.
always think about that, so I have to make sure that there's room for whatever kind of dialogue is going to be there. Usually, you want it above the person's head, or in a place where it's kind of like behind them a little bit. So I may even, like, as I'm going back to panel one, there's really no dialogue here. There's a little dialogue right here. There's a little dialogue right here. So far, there's not a lot of
Mhm.
uh, places where I need to make sure there's empty space where the art isn't, any important art isn't being covered. And then you've got dialogue above the person. And again, there's the door has to be blocked in there somewhere. Um, and then as something similar with this panel five, with the door behind them, and then panel six, um, where it may silhouette the person, we can see the door. And that's just an instinctive thing.
Mhm.
So one other thing, which is, when I'm doing these, this is something I learned from one of my mentors when I was back in school. Ty Templeton, if anybody knows, is a very well-known comic book writer and illustrator, creator. He's worked on Batman and a bunch of Marvel and
Mhm.
all different comics, and he's a teacher as well. And so I took some classes with him, and he taught us about, when you're doing a page, you should always have an establishing shot, an action shot, and a close up, right? And that's
Mhm.
just so that you're hitting certain kinds of um, beats, you're getting certain kinds of emotion and excitement from the page, you're giving certain kinds of information. And it's not a rule you have to follow with every page, but that's something I generally try to think of. I want to have like a variety when
Mhm.
I'm working on a page. So I always think, okay, you're working into a room, you kind of need to see what's in the room. So you're gonna zoom out, right? But then if you have some action, somebody's holding a box, you may want to close in on that a bit. Same thing with opening the door, right? But when they're on the phone, which isn't really super exciting, you can close up, get a
Mhm.
close up of that person, see their reaction, their facial expression, get a feel for the emotion they're feeling. And then back to panel six, where they're moving boxes again, I can zoom out. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about as I'm going from panel to panel on this page, and I'm gonna move on to page two.
Wanted to actually mention something about dialogue, since Keith brought it up, because that's one of the things that, you know, there is dialogue in this, but it's very minimal. So it's important to sort of decide as well, like how visually the dialogue's going to look, because it's very different to someone actually speaking it. So how it's going to fit in, where, and if the action can do it without the dialogue, take the dialogue out, right? We want the action to be able to do enough of the things, and then the dialogue sort of fills in where necessary. Okay, so we do actually have a couple of questions. So we have, when making a page turn, where on the page is best to place your splash image?
So first of all, you don't necessarily need a splash image. If you're saying if you were to have a so a splash, I guess I should explain what a splash image is first of all. Splash image is essentially it's like a singular panel on a page, and it often bleeds out or goes all the way to the edges of the page, and it's meant to be dynamic or uh, amplified, exclamation, something that really hits the reader hard in some way because it's so big, right? So I would say it depends on really what your, when you say where should you put a splash page, I'm thinking like it depends on where we are in the story, right? If this is a continuing like a mini series or a continuing comic, you could potentially have a splash page on page one if people have already read the first four issues, and then it's left on some kind of interesting note. And then when you open that first page on the next issue, it's like, whoa, look where this I was kind of expecting something like that, but I wasn't completely sure, right? A
Mhm.
splash page could be another one is could be a double splash page or something like this where it's taking up two pages, right? And it could be something where it's just a massive area of space that you want to be able to show somebody, right? So again, it's going to depend on what the purpose of it is. If let's say it's a map and you're wanting somebody to be able to see the map and real close up, and it's not really a surprising thing necessarily, but it is important for somebody to see it. You can have it on the same page as like the next page, that it wouldn't be a reveal or anything. Um, if it's a something that's supposed to be exciting and energizing for the person, you usually want to do it when you flip the page, right? So, oh my goodness, look at this big epic battle I'm seeing, right? That kind of thing.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining that for anyone that didn't know what a splash image was. So that's great. And if you have any follow-up questions to that, please feel free to ask. We have another comment, and great to see your collaboration at work. Thank you. Thank you for making this series. You both have strong creative problem-solving abilities. Do you communicate through the whole process? And the answer to that is yes. Keith and I go back and forth through the entire process, and that's how we've kind of worked together from the get-go on anything we've worked together on, is that we sort of, from the moment we decide to do something, we're back and forth constantly on this. In this particular case, we're doing things separately and together. So I'm working on the script on my side. Keith's working on some of the offline drawings, and then we share things back and forth. Some things we kind of save as a surprise to get that initial, like, what are your thoughts live? And other things we share ahead of time just so that we can mentally prepare for the next stage. For an example, today I did share the script with Keith before, just so that he could kind of see exactly what I was going to share with all of you, just so that he was aware of the breadth of what it was going to be, so that it wasn't a huge surprise at this point. And also because we'd added 2 additional pages last week that had kind of come up on the fly. So I wanted to make sure he was comfortable with what those pages entailed before I shared them today. So yes, we kind of collaborate all the way through, and we'll continue doing so until we get to the end of this comic book in another few weeks. So yeah, and thank you both for your questions and for participating. We appreciate it. Okay, so we have moved on to page 3, I see.
Yeah, and so we are coming to the part of this where we're going to stop. I guess going live in a couple of minutes, but we're going to keep on recording. So if you want to become a member to get a full sense of the story, it's not going to be necessary for you if you don't become a member, but it's going to kind of fill in. It's going to complement. If you have further questions, we can always answer them in the membership. And so I highly recommend you go to our YouTube, where you can go to the link there. It's Ko-fi, or you go to our Instagram as well. It's available there. But I just want to comment before we do go off from live, is that um, when I'm doing all of this here, and I'm thinking about uh, some of the things that I can be doing maybe slightly differently from the script. Um, I'm not necessarily going to. It's important to have this conversation ahead of time with the person you're collaborating with, but you always want to um, be able to know that if you need to change things up, change the timing of something, that you have that ability. But it's always a good idea to have that conversation with the writer so
Yeah,
that there's no surprise. And I am there's a couple of things I'm thinking I might change up in regards to like how it's paced. But
Absolutely.
so far, it's giving me a really good sense of like how this is going to flow. Because of that, I think it's going to be a really kind of dramatic, exciting story.
hmm
I just want to mention as well that I will be recording parts of this where it's just going to be um, me working on this. So a lot of what this is going to be refining and refining and refining, and then we'd probably be making a video from looking at the video that I'm uh, working on, so that where there's really pertinent information, we'll be able to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? So I will work on this outside of the podcast, record it, and then make sure that if there's really important parts that Sarah and I will actually have a podcast live talking about it.
Yes, exactly. You won't miss out on any parts of it. And like he said, some of it does require some more focused thought than he can do while chatting with us live. So if that's the case, he will record it and we will play it live and talk it through and sort of make sure that you're up to date on everything. So thank you so much for everyone joining us. And we're going to head into the members area and continue this episode. Thanks a lot.
Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.